Welcome to the Midwest City Council meeting for May 24th, 2022. We've got a fairly heavy agenda this evening, so bear with us and we'll get through it. We've got a lot of stuff to get through. So with that being said, would ask for you to stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation be offered by Vaughn Sullivan, and the Pledge of Allegiance be offered by our own Sarah Hancock, City Clerk.
I ask you to bow with me, please. Gracious Lord, we thank you so much for this rain that we've enjoyed today, and we thank you for that blessing, and thank you for this meeting tonight, Lord, and these men and women who are willing to serve on this council. Father, they need your wisdom and your discernment, and we ask that that be upon them tonight, and that they have peace in the decisions they make. Please grant them that as well, Father. Thank you so much for this great city and state and nation and the freedoms we enjoy here and all those who are willing to defend them all over the world tonight. Father, thank you for those who serve in that capacity as well, and give them peace and protection. Thank you so much for Jesus and the blessing of his sacrifice, and we ask all these favors in his holy name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Okay, we'll now move into community-related announcements. Mr. Lyon.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Some of our community announcements tonight. With open enrollment at our area VOTEC and college, now is the time to apply for career training grants available to income qualified residents 18 and over who can tie their unemployment or underemployment status back to economic effects of the COVID pandemic. Information on this program can be given or provided through the Grants Management Office at 739-1216, 739-1216. Second, the city is partnering with Rose State College Kids College to provide scholarships for income-eligible Midwest City families. Once again, through our grants office, 739-1216. 2022 Association Celebration is going to be Thursday, June 9th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at Joe B. Barnes Regional Park Rotary Pavilion at 8730 East Reno Avenue. Any information that you need for that association celebration can be provided at 739-1009. I'd like to point out for those that have not seen the Monday, May 16th issue of the Journal Record. It is many articles about Midwest City, about our position for Midwest City being positioned for economic growth. There's articles about the aerospace industry. There are articles about new restaurants coming into our community. There's articles about Rose State College cybersecurity program. There's things about St. Anthony's and the improvements they're making at our hospital and the healthcare in our community. So I'd like to thank Robert Coleman and where's Robert and Josh? I can't see these guys. There they are. Yep. So they did a great job working with the Journal Record. So thank you for that. Sales tax report for the month of May. Our sales tax year over year was down $327,000, 6.84%. So I think you can, I'm not sure that's a trend yet for our economy, how much impact fuel's starting to have on our citizens' available income to buy other things other than gas. I know I filled my truck up last night. It was $106. I won't let it get down to a quarter tank ever again. But anyway, so sales tax was down versus our projection, which is what we commit our budget to in the city. to run our operations for for the city side, which is police, fire, and the administration of the city, we were still above our projection by 13%. For the year versus projection, we're up about 14%. And then comparables for the other cities in the metro, it was kind of a hodgepodge of some cities were relatively flat. Some cities like Dale City were down. Choctaw was flat. Oklahoma City was up a little bit. Moore was flat. Edmond was up 9%. Yukon was flat. And Shawnee was down. So it looks like from a trend perspective, we'll just have to play it by ear as far as we study the trend. And finally, I have a statement that I'd like to make regarding what happened at Regional Park on Friday. So I'd like to take a few minutes to address the unfortunate shooting that occurred in Joe B. Barnes Regional Park the afternoon of Friday, May 20th. The City Council, Midwest City, city staff, and our first responder teams have been heartbroken about the tragic loss of life that happened there. From the city of Midwest City, our condolences go out to the family and friends of the 15-year-old young man who lost his life in a truly senseless act of violence. As the investigation began, our police department, led by Chief Sid Porter, immediately implemented a safety action plan for the park. Residents and visitors to our community have likely noticed an increase in police presence patrolling the park and areas surrounding the park. Since the shooting, we've listened to that outpouring concern from our residents about safety in Regional Park. What we've heard is the Midwest City families make lifelong memories there. This is our most popular park where they can relax, enjoy time with each other, improve their well-being. The calls, comments, and messages we've received confirm that this heartbreaking loss of life has taken place in truly the heart of our community. The city of Midwest City shares these feelings about Regional Park. We are heavily invested there, evidenced by the fact it is home to our largest special events and the most popular recreation facilities that we maintain for the quality of life of our residents in Midwest City and eastern Oklahoma County. As we move forward, we'll keep these feelings at the forefront of our plans and actions. We'll move forward with the mantra that Midwest City Parks exist for the wellness of our entire community. We'll move forward with the understanding that every available resource should be used to try to keep our public spaces free from violence. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Wine. I want to echo the response by Mr. Wine. Everyone on this council is extremely aware and proactive on making sure that our parks and our city remain safe. We have one of the most professional police departments in the state of Oklahoma working for you. And as soon as this incident happened, they were on top of it and they continue to investigate. So please rest assured in that matter. Again, our thoughts and prayers obviously go with the family and everybody involved in this tragic incident. Ms. Eads, do you have anything for the okay. Anyone else have that? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to make some acknowledgments, if that's okay, briefly. I just wanted to thank Ms. Barbara Kelton and Director Mike Stroh of the Neighborhood Action for continuing to build and maintain community relations through our neighborhood association meetings. I've had the privilege of participating in a few of those. I encourage all residents to check out when their neighborhood associations meet and possibly consider participating in those events. I want to thank Lieutenant Henry of the Midwest City Police Department for investing in our youth and children through the Midwest City Hoops program. I believe their next event is going to be at 4 o'clock this Wednesday at the YWCA. I want to give a special shout out to Officer Jimenez, who responded to a call by a few youth and children in my community. I want to thank him for his humility and compassion as he spoke and responded to the needs and the calls of the children. I want to give my sincerest gratitude and appreciation to Captain Joe Cruz and Chief Sid Porter for granting me the opportunity to go on a ride along this Saturday. I had the privilege of learning and connecting with many of our wonderful residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Madden. No one else have anything community-related announcements, so we'll get into the fun part of this. We have several proclamations we need to do, and we'll start with that. The academic team, they're the most important. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me now? This really brings a lot of pleasure to me. Number one, I know the teacher, known a couple of years, but will the Midwest City Middle School academic team come down? These young men and women, in the first time, or the entire history, now, I don't know if the history includes both Jarman and Monroney.
To my knowledge, Jarman never won state, Monroney has. But it's been a bit, 2011.
Okay. Well, these young men and women won the overall state academic bowl contest. So let me read this so I don't gunk it up too bad. Whereas the Oklahoma Junior Academic Bowl Association gives Oklahoma 5th through 9th graders the opportunity to participate in academic bowl playoff series of district, regional, and state tournaments. Whereas on April 2nd, 2022, the Midwest City 5th and 6th grade middle school academic team won their first Oklahoma Junior Academic Bowl Association state championship. Whereas the winning team members are led by Coach Sherry Bruce, Coach Leanne Hanna, included is Adeline, and if I mess up your names, I apologize sincerely, Adeline Beeman, current player on the 7th, 8th grade team, and official time and scorekeeper, Sophia Beeman, spelling and math specialist and co-captain and highest scorer, Camden Biles, geography and history expert, Ava Hayden, lightning round specialist, Darcy Smart, spelling specialist. You want to come and hang out for a little bit? Okay, well. Patrick Wells, political and current events specialist. You need to come out and hang out. And co-captain. Whereas the team had to become proficient at the bones of the human body, the citizenship test, scientific elements both alphabetically and numerically, grammar, the U.S. Constitution, U.S. Declaration of Independence, and U.S. President. So, therefore, I, Matthew Dukes, Mayor of Midwest City, do hereby proclaim May 25th, 2022 as Midwest City Middle School Academic Team Day. Congratulations. Let's give a round of applause to him again. We're going to be just fine, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it.
Mayor, if you get in close with them,
Oh,
everybody hold
party
the
pig.
proclamation
I
up
forgot.
like this, please. Very good. Excellent. All right, right here, folks. Look at Judge camera first. And this one, here we go. There you go. Thank you so much.
And I do want to thank Ms. Eads for facilitating this for you guys.
Mayor, we've got some pictures.
Okay. All right, no sweat.
Ready, guys? Hannah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys again.
Thank you.
One of the things that we like to do at the City of Midwest City is recognize our employees who spend 20, 30, 40 years working for you, the citizens of Midwest City. And unfortunately, tonight we have one that we need to retire. Wilbert, will you come down? It's your day, Wilbert.
Jim?
How long you been with us?
Like 34 to 36 years.
34 to 36 years?
Yeah, temps and then permanent.
Okay. Well, Wilbert, and I've been instructed on numerous times on how to pronounce your name. Filsek.
You got it.
All right.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, there were several
Yeah.
people that made it.
Oh,
Whereas Wilbert Filsek began his career in February 1987 as a laborer in the line maintenance department, promoted to crew chief in 1989, and promoted again to project foreman in 2017, and is retiring in July of 2022. With over 35 years of faithful service to the city of Midwest City. Whereas Wilbert is dependable and works well with others, leading by example to build effective teams, directing goals and talents toward the priorities of the city and the needs of the residents and merchants. Whereas his professional, caring customer service and listening skills have built up trust with those who he is in contact with, which has helped resolve conflicts with employees as well as customers. His wisdom in providing solutions during difficult situations will be missed. And whereas Wilbert, many years of experience and was instrumental in the successful creation of the new line maintenance division in 2016, and has been vital to the training efforts as well as professional development for many employees within Public Works, which will leave a lasting legacy for years to come. Where he has embraced the technological advances of line maintenance and gone paperless for work orders and encourages on-the-job training and more, if needed, to ensure that the Midwest City community receives the highest quality of life possible. So therefore, I, Matt Dukes, Mayor of Midwest City, do hereby proclaim May 24th, 2022 is Wilbert Filsek Day in the city, and ask all residents to show your appreciation for his hard work and dedication to this community.
cool.
Congratulations, man.
Mr. Duke.
Okay.
It's still on.
Okay. So from the city, in special recognition of Wilbert Filsek, goes by Will, anyway, Will
Yeah.
Filsek for loyal and
Yeah.
dedicated service. I've never heard you call Wilbert before.
Me either. Not very often. No. Just when the boss gets mad at me.
Okay, I should start over. In special recognition of Wilbert Filsek for loyal and dedicated service to the citizens of the city of Midwest City, Oklahoma, February 1987 to July 2022, 35 years. So thank you for your dedication. And hard work, and it's been an adventure, and you've been through a lot over the years, and we appreciate everything you've done for the city. You're gonna be missed.
Yeah, I'll miss this one. Through the years, I've been, I worked with several very good people in this community here. It's a good place to work, and I'll miss you all. You know, I've known you for several years. I've known Von Sullivan for several years. I know.
Several's like 22. but
Fall
anyway.
Street, Justin Madison, and yeah, I'll miss y'all for sure.
You can always come back as a
Just-
temp.
That's right. There's a check in here from your service awards as well.
Oh my
I
God!
don't know.
Thank you.
I almost lost that. Here we go. Let's get a picture. Don't be a stranger.
Yeah, I'll drop in.
Congratulations, buddy. Thank you. Okay, we're a little late on this one, but still yet it needs to be read. Whereas National Police Week is to honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas the dedicated men and women who have been chosen as law enforcement face a career face extraordinary risks and dangers in preserving our freedom and security. Whereas it is fitting and proper that we express our gratitude for the dedicated service and courageous deeds of law enforcement officers for their contributions they have made to the security and well-being of all of our people. And whereas by joint resolution approved October 1st, 1962, the Congress has requested the President to designate May 15th of each year as Peace Officer Memorial Day, and the calendar week during such May 15th occurs as Police Week. Whereas the members of the City of Midwest City Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the residents and merchants of our community. Therefore, I, Matt Dukes, Mayor of Midwest City, do hereby proclaim May 8th through the 14th, 2022 as Police Appreciation Week, and ask that all citizens express their appreciation to the law enforcement officers that protect our community and keep us safe. Mr. Street.
I didn't write this
You didn't write this
one. Not
one?
the whole thing, just part of it.
Goodness. He can get wordy. Whereas public works professionals, and Wilbert is one of those, who, keep the water flowing and the sewer flowing. It's vitally important. I mean, the police and fire get a lot of accolades. These guys work just as hard and are just as important to the infrastructure of our community. Just want to throw that in. That whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, essential services that are vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health and high quality of life and well-being of the people of Midwest City. Whereas the infrastructure, facilities, and essential services could not be provided without dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for citizens, civic leaders, and children in the Midwest City to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest in understanding the importance of public works and public works programs in their prospective communities. Whereas year 2022 marks the 62nd year annual National Public Work Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, Canada Public Works Association. So therefore, I, Matthew Dukes, Mayor of Midwest City, do hereby proclaim the week of May 15th to the 21st as Public Works Appreciation Week. And just remember, when you flush and the bad stuff goes away, this is one of the millions that keep that going.
Actually, we ought to get these other public works guys up here to get a picture.
Yeah, Justin,
come on,
you guys,
Justin,
yeah, come
Wilbert,
on.
Forrest,
Yeah,
come on,
yeah.
guys. Unsung heroes. Fact is, if you turn on your faucet and you do flush your toilet right now, these gentlemen are the reason that that works right every day, or at least most of the time. So it's true.
True.
I don't think I've ever seen this guy, this spiffy.
Hey, Justin. I've already shook your hand.
Hey, till July, till July.
Oh, he's still employed.
That's exactly right. He's still employed. Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
guys.
Mr. Mayor, one of the proclamations that wasn't mentioned that I wanted to bring attention to tonight is May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And when you ask about comments earlier, I didn't have any community announcements, but if you would indulge me to step back for just a second, I wanted to read something very briefly on Mental Health Awareness Month. This is something that I stole from a friend's page on social media, and it gives a list of names of medications used to treat anxiety and depression in particular. It says you may know what these tablets are or know a loved one who takes them, but in case you don't, I'll fill you in. It's medication, excuse me, that allows most people to deal with a normal day-to-day life. Although most days it leaves them tired, spaced out, emotionless, or even super emotional. Crazy, right? Why would anyone want to feel like that? Well, this is why. You see, some people suffer from severe depression and anxiety. In their brain, it doesn't sit right. Something seems different. They notice little differences that other people wouldn't. Most days they wake up sick and feel sleepless. They consistently overthink every situation. Was a comment about them? Was it a joke? Was that person supposed to laugh, or did they mean it? Are they being nice? Are they talking about them? Do they talk about them? They then think, I bet they don't like me really. They say sorry all the time. They feel like they annoy everyone. And for all those questions, they'll spend hours trying to answer. Let it build up in their mind until it sends them into tears. It's mental that they see things that way. It's not only mental changes, but physical changes. They don't eat a lot or they eat way too much. Insomnia, up all night, answering questions to situations that don't exist, or sleep too much and waste half their day still feeling tired. They still smile, and they have every excuse for when you ask why. But the tablets can help them because they know when they start to feel this way or think this way, they need help. They know that when their behavior starts to change, they need guidance. And they understand that they don't need to be ashamed. They don't need to be understood. They just need to be accepted. Everyone is fighting a battle, and sometimes you need to be kinder. So I may just be another person who's talking about mental health. Living with this illness is hard, but trying to understand it is even harder. It's also 100 times harder if they have another condition on top of this. Don't suffer in silence. Mental health is just as important as physical health. Be part of the healing, be understanding, be kind. And that would be my ask of us as a city, to be cognizant of the issues of mental health awareness, and that we put forward effort to improve the situation for members of our community who deal with mental health issues, and to be thankful for the police and the fire department and the first responders who deal with people with kindness and compassion who are suffering with mental health issues. And I
agree,
thank you.
and I would also add to that that you need to contact your local representatives to ensure that the Department of Mental Health is properly and adequately funded. And that's been an issue in the state of Oklahoma for quite a while. So thank you for that, Susan. I appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the fun stuff is over. Now we got to do business. So, with that being said, we're going to go into our consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so that the council, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any council member requests to discuss an item, or if a unanimous consent cannot be received, the item will be removed and heard in regular order. Chair to entertain a motion to approve.
I'd like to remove items 8, 9, 11, 12, and 15 for discussion, please. And with that, I would move to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
We have a properly formed motion, and I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 8, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion and consideration of renewing, including any possible amendment, the administrative services agreement with Healthcare Services Corp. to provide administrative services for the Employee Health Benefits Plan for fiscal year 2022-23 for a net cost of $60.40 per employee per month and $10 per month for participants for COBRA services charges with a $75 a month administrative fee. Mr. Bradley.
So, Mr. Bradley, I just wanted to ask to pull this item, and I had spoken to Mr. Lyon about this one. It's my understanding, I mean, this is a pretty significant cost that's being paid when you multiply it out across all the employees for the city. And I understand that this is not something that our internal HR department, being so limited in staff, can handle. But I just wanted to address it because of the cost exposure to the city. It's my understanding that we don't have the opportunity to sort of competitively bid for this. And when we have tried to competitively bid for these third-party administrative services in the past, it wasn't at a cost savings. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
Okay. And so we're kind of at the mercy of our chosen health insurers for city employees to use a particular third-party administrator service, and that's at this cost. Is that correct?
Basically, yes.
Is there anything else you want to add about it? That was just my question.
I mean, we have access to the Blue Cross preferred network for the employees on, or the members on the plan, and Blue Cross charges the fee to administer that and handle all the claims and paying the claims and yeah, we are cognizant of the cost. Obviously, we are a self-funded plan, so all the costs come out of our pockets directly, and we do aim to save money where we can, and to look around and see if we can save money, and if we can look for discounts or credits through Blue Cross, and they've been pretty reasonable lately as far as being flexible, and we've been able to look at a couple things and say, well, here's some other options that may be out there, and so they're willing to budge a little bit.
Something I pointed out to Councilwoman Eads is, so we're a self-insured plan. To be in the Blues network, we have to let Blue Cross adjust our claims. That's kind of part of the deal. We used to have our pharmacy benefit through Blue Cross, and we did competitively bid that, and we carved that out. Within that, prior to, there was the rebates that come from all the pharmaceuticals went to offset the cost of TPA services. So that's why it looks like it's a higher number, because it was subsidized through that. But when we did the cost benefit analysis, it was much greater benefit to the plan to carve it out and do the rebates ourselves directly, instead of letting Blue Cross and Blue Shield take those rebates.
And I did want to point out that there is a just over a 1% decrease in costs from Blue Cross this year.
1%?
Yeah. It's
I understand.
better than an increase.
Right. Yeah, better than a 10% increase. So,
yeah, the
right.
administrative costs, there is a slight decrease this year.
Okay. And my question, I know you have to probably read it for the record since I asked to pull it, but just was similar, just again, the cost on number 9 for, related to the stop-loss coverage, and again,
Vote on
I
this
think
one.
we probably need to vote on this item before we move to the next item.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were gonna do them all in a group. My apologies.
No, I think from a parliamentary standpoint, we need to vote on each item. Is Mike correct?
That is correct. Now that they're discussion items, they need to be brought up individually and voted on individually.
With that being said, I'd entertain a motion to approve number 8.
So moved.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 9, Mr. Lyons.
Discussion, consideration of renewing the contract, including any possible amendment for the stop-loss policy with Healthcare Services Corp. to provide and administer specific and aggregate stop-loss for the Employee Health Benefits Plan for the fiscal year 2022-23 at a rate of $3.11 per employee per month for an aggregate attachment point, which is $8,463,908, and $130.64 per employee per month for a specific attachment point of $150,000 per covered person.
And similarly, it was just a question with regard to the cost on these type of thing, and that, again, where we're at is kind of the best option that we have available
Yeah, we
for
do.
the services.
We have
selected.
looked at other options in the last couple of years to carve out the stop loss, and these rates are pretty competitive for our group. Plus, there's a benefit here that Blue Cross talks to each other, and so the stop loss reimbursement is more accurate and sped up.
With that being said, move to approve item number 9 at this time.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 11. Mr.
Discussion and
Lyons.
consideration for entering into and approving and including any possible amendment for professional services with Tunnel, Spangler and Associates, which we call TSW, in the amount of $368,345 to provide schematic design and pricing plans for the Parkland Drive and National Avenue schematic design, which is our medical district renovation. Mr. Harless.
And Mr. Harless, I'll just jump out there with my question. I mean, it's a big ticket item and it was coming through consent agenda, so being good steward of the public fisc, I have to ask the question in terms of the cost that's here with regard to the design and so forth. This is not something that we can take on internally and do, correct? Like, this is a situation where we really need to have an outside contractor provide?
Yes,
this
that is
service?
correct. We would need some outside professional consultants to help us with this.
Okay. So with that being said, I would move to approve item number 11.
I have a motion. Second. I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 12, Mr. Lyons.
Discussion consideration for entering into and approving, including any possible amendment for the professional services with Johnson and Associates in the amount of $250,000 to provide general site topographic and boundary survey, underground survey, and title work for the Parkland and National Avenue schematic designs. Mr. Harless.
This is gonna feel like deja vu, Mr. Harless. Same thing. We, this is $250,000 that we're talking about. We cannot provide this service internally, correct?
That is correct. We cannot.
Okay.
And we did receive multiple quotes for this. Johnson Associates was the low bid,
And it's someone we've used historically that
and
we're
we've
comfortable
used
with.
Johnson
so-
Associates, yeah.
Right. Okay. With that being said, I move to approve item number 12.
Okay, thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item 15, Mr. Lyons.
So that's just real quick, this is the survey work for the hospital district that has to be done before we can start any other plan design or anything else, so. Item 15, right, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Say? Okay. Discussion, consideration, adoption, including any possible amendment to one, awarding a bid and entertaining into a contract for the second round of the Moving Midwest City Forward 2018 GeoBond concrete street paving projects with Parathon Construction for the total amount of $780,457, and two, authorizing the mayor to sign and execute the contract documents. Mr. Bundy.
So, Mr. Bundy, I'm going to jump out there with my question to save you from having to just talk about this generically, if you don't mind. Again, because it's, over $750,000, I wanted to ask the question in terms of these services that are being provided. We've done part of this under the GeoBond previously on the road paving and resurfacing. Parathon, if I remember correctly, was not the company we used last time, was it?
It is the current.
It is the same company?
Yes, it is the
Okay.
same.
And we had some service issues with them last time, circumstances, extenuating circumstances, if you were, type of thing, but we're comfortable with going forward with them this time on this second
Yes,
part?
ma'am. We're comfortable with continuing with them.
Okay, and they were in line with, did we bid this one, or did we just go with them again for?
No, we bid this, and we had 6 bidders,
Okay,
so it was pretty competitive.
okay. That being said, I move to approve item 15.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Eads.
Do we need to do the addendum, or is it
Yeah.
a part? Is a part, it was part of the consent items.
Okay, so we're good with that? Okay. We move into discussion items of our agenda. We'll begin with discussion item number 1. Mr. Lyon.
PC 2110, public hearing with discussion and consideration, including any amendment of an ordinance to redistrict from C1 restricted commercial to R6 single-family detached residential for the property described as Block 1, Lot 1 of the Har Julian replat, if I said that right, addressed at 403 West Fairchild. Mr. Harless.
Yes, Mr. Lyon. This is a request to rezone the property from C1 restricted commercial district to R6 single-family detached residential district. The applicant, Mr. Ben Fox, is attempting to sell the house that has existed on the property since 1960. As of 1985, the property was zoned C1 restricted commercial. The sale fell through because the house could not be built if it were to burn down per city ordinances regarding non-conforming uses. Mr. Fox wishes to zone the property to match the current existing use. Planning Commission heard this application at the May 3rd meeting and recommended approval of this application. Action is at the discretion of the council, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Is the applicant with us? There you are, sir. You have anything you wanted to add?
No, I've had the house since 2008.
You need to come forward and state your address, and then.
Yeah, my name is Ben Fox, and I've owned the house since 2008. When I purchased it, there were no issues, I guess, with my lender, but now no lender will make a loan on this home because if something happens to it, can't be rebuilt. So the home next to it is a house, the home across the streets are all houses, everything else is residential except for my property and then the one right directly to the east of it.
And the clerk's going to need you to state your address just for the records. Okay. No, you're okay? Okay.
Okay.
Cool. She looked hesitant over there, so I wanted to make sure. She's the queen, and so we do what she tells us to, and no one gets hurt, type of thing. Thank you for being here.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Does anyone have anything to say about this particular item? Mr. Harless, there's no consequence either way of us passing this, correct?
That is correct.
Move to approve.
I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I did.
Yeah, he did. He said it was a public hearing.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 2, there is no action needed on this particular item. We'll move on to item number 3. Mr. Lyon.
PC 2112, public hearing with discussion and consideration for adoption, including any possible amendment of an ordinance to redistrict from PUD, Plan Unit Development governed by the C3 Community Commercial to SPUD, Simplified Plan Unit Development governed by the RHD High Density Residential District, and a resolution to amend the comprehensive plan from OR Office Retail to HDR High Density Residential for the property platted as Midtown Office Park Phase 2, Block 5, Lots 1 through 6, addressed as 1641, 1647, 1653, 1659, 1665, and 1671 Midtown Place. Mr. Harless.
Yes, thanks again, Mr. Lyon. This application is a request to rezone the area, a request to a SPUD governed by the RHD High Density Residential from C3 Community Commercial Zoning District. The applicant intends to develop the area into townhomes or condominiums. If granted, the zoning would in effect create a mixed-use development with the retail office on the east side and townhomes condos on the west side. Planning Commission recommended approval, and it's at the council's discretion. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Is this the space that we had approved for apartments a couple of years back?
It's this is just north of that, yes.
Okay, but the apartments are still, okay.
Yes, sir.
This is a public hearing. Does anyone have anything to say about this particular item? Yes, ma'am. Will you come to the microphone and please state your name and address for the record, please?
Joella Beaver, 10917 Ashton Terrace. This is the first I'm hearing of this. Could somebody please give a little detail so I could understand it?
Well, it's been in the works for several years, and this is just a furtherance of the ongoing construction that's ongoing up there now. The first part of that was approved like 2.5, 3 years ago. Are you directly affected by this?
I am, because I live in Midwest City.
Okay, well, what would you like to know?
First of all, is it some more low housing apartments?
Pardon me?
Or is it going to be low housing apartment again, low income housing?
It's going to be housing, ma'am.
Is it going to be low income?
The applicant's here. Mr. Johnson, would you like to address?
Jeff Johnson, 5 Northeast 3rd, Oklahoma City.
The lady was asking what income level is your housing going to be?
I'd say medium income. There's no low-income housing. We're not taking any government funds, federal funds or anything.
And wasn't your original design was to provide housing for the medical community that was occupying the front part of your development? Wasn't that the kind of the
Yes, it's
gist?
just an extension of what we're already doing, which is under construction now. Things have changed in the world, so
Sure.
The office isn't quite as needed, so we're kind of pivoting to more retail and housing, kind of a mixed use. So the east side, we're going to do some micro retail, kind of a courtyard type retail, and then the other side will be the housing. And it'll be identical to what we're building now.
Absolutely.
Is this going to be over at the hospital complex?
No, ma'am.
No.
This is on 15th and Douglas, just south of that intersection, in the new medical complex that sits back over there.
S&B.
S&B Burgers used to be
Yes.
directly west of that. I mean, directly.
Okay, okay,
I mean, their parking lots could touch.
okay. But it's not going to be more low-income housing?
Two
Okay.
low-income housing.
Well, what's two? That's the question, define two.
Have we addressed your concerns, ma'am?
Well, I don't know. I want to hear some more before I will be able to
Well,
tell you.
we're, I don't know what else we could offer you on this particular item.
Not yet.
Is this going to be voted yes or no tonight?
Yes, ma'am, we've got a motion on the floor, and I'm going to have to act on it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carried. I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm sorry that you hadn't heard about it, but it's been ongoing for several years.
Where's it been publicized?
I'm sorry?
Where was it publicized?
It's been publicized all over.
So it was advertised in the newspaper, and then we sent out notification for a 300-foot buffer around the property.
Move on to item number 4. Mr. Lyon.
PC 2113, public hearing with discussion and consideration for adoption, including any possible amendment of an ordinance to redistrict from R6 single-family residential to PUD planned unit development governed by the RHD high-density residential district, as well as a tract governed by the C3 community commercial district, and a resolution to amend the comprehensive plan from POS Parks and Open Space and OR Office Retail to HDR High Density Residential for the property described as the Southwest Quarter, Section 12, Township 11, North Range 2 West, located at 9309 Southeast 29th and 9020 Southeast 25th. Mr. Hartless.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Lyon. This is 41.62 acres to the northeast corner of Douglas and 29th. The applicant is requesting to rezone the area of request to a PUD governed by RHD high-density residential and C3 community commercial zoning districts. The PUD outlines the 3 tracts, 2 of which will be governed by the RHD zoning districts. Tract A, located along the eastern portion of the floodplain, stipulates a maximum density of 650 units. Tract B fronts along Southeast 29th Street and stipulates that a maximum density of 250 units. Tract C is the commercial portion of the PUD along 29th Street. The developer has stated that he intends to develop Tract A as mid-rise apartments with a maximum height of 50 feet. Tract B is intended for attached townhomes. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this application contingent on the developer securing an additional access easement for emergency vehicles, the placement of landscape elements like trees and shrubs in front of the apartment buildings, lighting, and will be willing to work with staff through the development process. Action is the discretion of the council, and Planning Commission recommended approval. I did talk with the applicant right before the meeting, and they have not. They've got a verbal with securing that emergency access road or easement, but they did not have it in writing. So, of course, I would be glad to answer any questions.
Well, you can go ahead with your question, then we'll do the public.
Can we get the developer and his engineer to come up and explain what's going to happen? And then if there's anybody in the audience, is anybody in the audience wishing to speak on this?
Nobody signed up.
Okay, but if you go ahead and explain what's going to happen. Sure.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Rob Garrett, Connor Development, 3312 Dogwood Lane, Edmond, Oklahoma. One, real excited about this project, excited about this site. I get more excited as we get into design every day. So, and I appreciate your consideration. So we're looking to do mid-rise garden-style apartments in this project. It will be developed in 3 different phases. The first phase being along 29th Street going north. Second phase up further north of that, and then the third phase would be the townhome portion off of Douglas Avenue. As far as the easement is concerned, we did talk to the mobile home park owners this morning. Unfortunately, they weren't able to talk until this morning, and so we weren't able to get an actual document in place, but they stated that they are acceptable to allowing us to use that. Mr. Johnson will be drawing up an easement for us to agree upon and execute here in the near future. So,
And as a result of our public meeting the other night, Johnson & Johnson had agreed to do some preliminary engineering on some of the flooding issues that we had and work with the city. Isn't that a true statement?
Yes, sir. Tim Johnson, Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue, Oklahoma City. Yes, as everybody knows, there's been some flooding issues along the north boundary of this piece of property. And our firm worked with the city staff to come up with an interim solution, and which is in place. It's got some issues with erosion because the grass hasn't had time to root yet. But we committed to, in our design for Phase 1, to come up and provide the city staff with a permanent solution design. That's a public easement that the city acquired, but we'll provide that design. And if it can be built before we get to Phase 2 by the city, that's fine. If it's not built by the time we get to Phase 2, then we would work with the city to put it in.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Does anyone have any further questions of the developer, Mr. Johnson?
I do, Mr. Mayor, just
Yes,
briefly.
ma'am.
So my other, excuse me, I'm so sorry. My other concern about this project is just with the level of density quoted in the proposal, the impact of traffic. And I read the information with regard to the alternative route for the 25th Street. But, you know, that isn't your issue per se, but we're aware and committed that we're going to have an impact on 29th Street in particular. And we already have an impact on 29th Street that's new because of the sports complex.
And the trailer park that's there, there's going to add quite a bit of traffic. We'll have to work on a traffic plan.
Okay, and
there.
we're comfortable with that. And
We're committed to doing that.
okay.
There's no citizens that have signed up to talk, so I'm gonna give the speech that I've kind of halfway prepared. Some of it's in my head, some of it's written. When the mayor and I were elected 6 years ago, even before we were sworn in, the orchard was the #1 priority. We hadn't even been sworn in yet, and we were getting pictures and videos of people that their backyards were being flooded out. And I'm not just saying sheet water, I'm talking ankle-deep water going in their backyards. And it took considerable work because of, you just can't go on people's property, either the residence or the property that the water was on, and fix it. You have to have, there's a lot of legal stuff that goes on that our attorneys have to get involved in. So when the mayor and I are expecting things to be done overnight, they didn't get done. But they're done now. Working with Johnson and Associates, which is a plus for us in the new development, we were able to come up with what everybody agrees is a temporary fix. And our city staff went out there and did it, and did an amazing job. And I believe to this day, we've solved the problem.
I was out there today and it was dry.
I mean, you talk, and I'm not exaggerating, you went from ankle, in some places, knee-deep water in people's backyards. I'm not going to go into the history. I'm just not going to go, but it was bad, and it was, those people over there needed some help. So we've been working on praying that somebody, a legitimate developer with a good engineer that had the fiscal ability to develop that property and get the drainage fixed. And we think, my personal opinion is that, and I don't know this developer, I've talked to him 2 or 3 times at public meetings that we've had. I've worked with Mr. Johnson on the subdivision regulations. I know his abilities. I feel very confident in him being the engineer. And that being said, at our public meeting the other day, in the people that were there from the orchard, and they have a legitimate issue about the water. They have a legitimate issue about the buffer in having apartments above them. But there's a 50-foot easement already, correct?
Yes.
Plus there's going to be another 30-foot easement, and they've committed to leave as many trees as possible that are very mature. These aren't, go to the store and buy a 2-foot tree and hope it grows. These are trees that are 30 and 40 and 50 feet high that would be very expensive to replace, and it would be irresponsible to take them down. So between the drainage easement and the buffer of the trees, I think that it's going to enhance our problem, or enhance that area. I also asked Robert Coleman to let me know what the economic impact would be if this first section of development was actually approved. And this is just the first step. This is not anywhere near the final deal. This is just the zoning. And they're willing to spend $46 million of their own money. And that's a significant amount of money coming into Midwest City. and that would equate to about $750,000 in one-time sales tax and use tax for the city. And you put that on top of what the money that will come into the city in the ad valorem taxes, the Middale School District, when this is just guesstimates from Robert Coleman, and I trust him, $270,000 a year in ad valorem taxes going to the schools. Rose State gets $70,000, Oklahoma County $40,000, the City of Midwest City $35,000, Metro Libraries $20,000, the City County Health Department $10,000 in the taxes. Plus the new, hopefully the new people that would be moving into Midwest City and the economic impact that would have on our jobs in Midwest City. And for anybody that lives in Midwest City, when Tinker closes, you can see all the motorcycles, the young guys going west. We want them to stay here in Midwest City. We want their money. We want them to spend their money here in Midwest City. This is not going to be a low-income housing addition. This will be a high dollar with amenities, and this is the kind of people that we need to attract in Midwest City. And the commitment that the developer has made, and I'm going to make a motion here in just a second, and we're going to get it in the motion, is that he's made some commitments that he's going to help take care of the drainage issue right there and keep the buffer. And if I'm for it, and is anybody else, before I make the motion, because there's some things I need to put in the motion to codify what we're going to expect of them, but
Let me color a block first here. This is a public hearing. Does anyone in the audience have anything to say about this particular item? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Sherry Bruce, 1817 Rhythm Road. I just, I've seen it on Facebook, and I don't know all the details, and I didn't go to the meeting, so I just kind of want, and I trust that since this is going to be in your backyard, and so it's not going to affect my mom's backyard either. So this is like, does that include like where Rogers Frog Pond is?
It will remove that.
it'll go bye-bye.
Okay, will it?
That's
Yeah,
the front,
my brother wouldn't like it
that's the
because
front
he used to
door.
go there, but yeah, anyway, it is? Okay. The other thing is, so these kids are going to go to Barnes?
That we don't know. I would have to assume that they would.
Because
go
the
to
Village
Salisbury.
Oaks kids go to Barnes. So then they would go to Carl Albert? Okay. All
Well,
right,
but
that was my only
The
question.
developer, based on, don't sit down, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
He has a study, or so he has done some research, because that was a question that he was asked about the schools.
Sorry.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah, this is a question that typically comes up with these type of developments, is the impact on the schools. And so it does matter to you. But looking at several large-scale developments in Oklahoma City, I was able to pull demographic data from those communities. And that data showed that only about 5 to 8% of the residents, of the units equate to minors. We typically don't see a lot of minors in our projects. I've developed over 1,600 projects. You just don't get a lot of families in these type of product.
So this is going to be a fancy pants place like the one on Westminster and 15th and like the one on 10th and Air Depot?
I don't know that I've ever used the word fancy pants, but yes, I would say I probably agree with you.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
I think I can agree with that, yes. Yes, I will, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bruce.
Okay, I'm
Go ahead with your motion, Ms.
I make a motion that it be approved, along with the contingent that the developer secure additional access easement for emergency vehicles, and that he demonstrate to us in writing that the easement has been received and filed appropriately, and that the placement of landscaping elements like trees and shrubs in front of the apartment buildings, lighting, and being willing to work with staff through the development process as it relates to the flooding in the buffer zones, and that the commitment that Johnson made on the drainage is held up, and that that the developer work with the city through the traffic planning, the traffic studies, and everything else that's required when this comes back to us.
I have a properly formed motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Great discussion. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Item number 5. Mr. Lyon.
And a great deal of work done by Councilman Byrne and the mayor meeting with the citizens in the orchard and working through their questions. So
In our commitment to the.
Staff appreciates that.
There has been a lot on Facebook. And a lot of the concerns that the residents in the orchard had are legitimate. And like I said, they were being flooded out. And you can't have that. There's no way in Midwest City we should allow that to occur. But I can promise you that the mayor and I will not turn our heads on this, that we will be involved in this till the day we're not sitting here and beyond, because we're putting our reputations out there.
All right, item 5, discussion and consideration for adoption, including any amendments of an ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code, Chapter 3, Advertising, Article 2, License, Sections 3-16, Required, Applications, or Application 3-17, Fee 3-18, Expiration, Prorating Transfer Signing, Seal, Chapter 9, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 7, Sign Regulations, Section 9-382, Definitions, and providing for repealer and severability. This is the Ordinance Review Committee. We have a series of items here that have been approved by the Ordinance Review Committee to be brought to council tonight. Mr. Maish.
Thank you. This is, as Mr. Lyon said, this is one of several ordinance changes that are coming before you. One of the things I was tasked to do by the Ordinance Review Committee and by Mr. Lyon is to begin a review of all of our city ordinances to see if we have any that can be repealed, removed, so that, Mr. Reed, we won't see these ever again. This is the first step in that. In Chapter 3 of our ordinances, we had 3 provisions that were still in city ordinance. Most of these provisions had been revoked in the past and moved to Chapter 9. And speaking with staff, nobody is using these anymore. We found 3 or 4 provisions that needed to come out of that and move into a definitional section in Chapter 9, which is what is placed in here. If this is approved, Chapter 3 then will no longer have any active city ordinances in place and will be in reserve in the event we need it in the future. As Mr. Lyon said, this was presented before the Ordinance Review Committee, which did recommend its approval. I'm willing to answer any questions.
Can we do when we do ordinances, can we do a sunset, like if they haven't been used since 1972 or amended, that they just sunset? Like, can we do something like that?
That sunsets generally apply to committees, things like that that are in place. Don't generally apply to ordinances or statutes or anything like that. Could we do a provision like that? That's something I'd have to research. I don't know right off the top of my head.
I seldom stump you. I like that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Item number 6, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion consideration for adoption, including any amendments of an ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code, Appendix A, Zoning Regulations, Section 6, Development Review Bodies, Part 6.3, Board of Adjustment, Subpart 6.3.2, Membership, and providing for repealer and severability. Mr. Maish.
Thank you. In this provision, we found conflicting provisions within the same city ordinance. One, allowing members of the Planning Commission to serve on the Board of Adjustment, and then it came right back and said, but they cannot serve simultaneously on the Board of Adjustment as well as the Planning Commission. What this change does is it removes that language that does not allow them to serve simultaneously, so that the city ordinance no longer has a conflict in it, and then members of the Planning Commission have the ability to, if they're on the Planning Commission, they could also serve on the Board of Adjustment. Again, this was presented before the Ordinance Review Committee, which recommended its approval. I'm willing to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I have one, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And my mine is just, was there a reason that doesn't come to my mind to not allow simultaneous service?
Not that I'm aware of.
We stumbled on it as a result of the questions you asked.
Yes,
That's how
Yeah.
we found it.
yes.
So is there a lot, I mean, I can't think of one, I just.
No, we couldn't either, that's why.
And I couldn't find one.
Yeah.
It was a result of your.
Yeah, it was, Councilwoman Eads, it was a result of some of the questions you asked that we did discover this issue.
Okay, well, if nobody has, I'll then to approve this.
You got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 7, Mr. Lyons.
Discussion and consideration for adoption, including amendments of an ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code, Chapter 9, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 2, Builders Advisory Board, Section 9-17, members, and providing for repealer and severability. Mr. Meisch.
Thank you. This provision cleans up a little bit of language in the Builders Advisory Board. It will, if these changes are adopted, allow an appointment to the board for either someone who is a resident or someone who is in the business of building or manufacturing here in the city of Midwest City. I know this was another question that you had, Councilwoman Eads, before, that we found that we had provisions in here that were more restrictive than what I believe was wanted. So we made the changes to allow you either have to meet 1, be a resident, or 2, be in the business. You don't have to meet both of those. And that was taken again before the Ordinance Review Committee, which recommended its adoption.
Is there a provision in there, so we appoint somebody today, they were building houses, 4 years from now, they've not built a house or anything in Midwest City for 2 or 3 years, they're no longer, they don't live here either. Would they still be able to serve? Because at one point, or are we going to have every time they come back up, we're going to look and see that they're still doing business in the city of Midwest City?
We're going to end up looking every time that they come up, that whether if they're not a resident, then yes, they'll have to be checked to make
Yeah,
sure
if
that
they're
they
not
are
doing
doing
business in
within the
Midwest City, we'll let you all know.
Right.
Right.
Any further discussion? I've got a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 8, Mr. Lyons.
Discussion consideration for adoption, including any possible amendment of an ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code, Chapter 18, Garbage and Refuse, Article 2, Municipal Collection and Disposal Service, Section 18-25, Container Required, Duty to Use, and provider for repealer and severability. Mr. Streets.
Honorable Mayor, Council, City Manager, first I need to thank Don Meisch and actually our City Clerk, Sarah, and the Ordinance Review Committee for the effort they made to make sure they could implement changes which actually help staff do their job and protect the customers and their vested interest in doing the right thing for the right reasons in our recycling program. In the past, it was very difficult for us to enforce when someone chose to use their poly cart that was designated for recycling. People put trash in it, and we had nothing to do except dump it and then incur that cost to ourselves. Now, with this ordinance, it allows us to educate the customer and charge the customer if they choose to use it as a trash bin instead of a recycling bin. And if they continue to do that, we will remove the cart. They will still continue to pay for the cart, but that way they can no longer use that cart as their trash bin, their second or third trash bin.
Can you educate the public how, I mean, you don't look in every single bin
No.
as it gets dumped, so how do you know if people are putting trash in their poly cart?
It's a great question. So our recycling contractor, when they dump the can, as they tip it, they have a couple of mirrors and some video. And if they see that it's full of stuff they can't dump, then they will set the can back down and call it into Public Works. Public Works will then go out and address it. The best way to do this is actually with an auditor. We don't have an auditor on staff, so we're not going to catch everyone, but we do our best to educate the public as we're made aware of it, and obviously as our contractor works with us hand in hand.
And so how many warnings do they get before you charge them?
First offense, we go educate them. Second offense, we charge them $20 and dump the can as trash. Third offense, we remove the can and charge them $20 for dumping it as trash.
Okay, and you're going to put that out in the water bill or something like that, letting people know?
We will indeed make sure. Josh has already committed himself to making sure that message is communicated to our public in every.
And that's Josh Ryan, by the way.
Josh Ryan, yes. Also, AKA Everbridge. If we get a chance, he will make sure to communicate this to every customer.
Everbridge.
And
To let everybody know.
Mr. Street, I was at a Chamber of Commerce meeting today, and the representative from Republic Recycling was there, and once again had nothing but glowing reviews of you and your performance and how you interact with their company, and obviously it's greatly appreciated.
I'm sufficiently
It
read.
must have been
Thank you very
Crystal.
much, yes.
Mr. Crystal.
So,
I
go
was
ahead.
also going to ask, is there a referral by like the Republic drivers, like where they make a naughty list essentially? Because usually there's a recurrence or recidivism rate with this.
We log each one of those, Councilwoman Eads, so that way, if we do get another call, we have a record that it's happened previously. Now, the other thing that's troublesome, I will tell you, and the city clerk can speak to this, but a lot of times you have, if it's a high turnover, if it's a rental property, we don't hold a new renter responsible for decisions that were made previously. We keep the information about the rental, the renter, and the property logged so that we can address it. I would entertain any other questions from the council.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Is it okay with you, Ms. Hancock? if we All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Thank you.
Yes, as a matter of fact, Memorial Day is on Monday. We will be picking up Wednesday, and that call out will go out on the Sunday prior, and a reminder on Tuesday as well. Both recycling and trash.
Recycling and trash. We'll send out an Everbridge call.
We will.
Item number 9, Mr. Lyons.
Discussion and consideration for adoption, including any amendments of an ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code, Chapter 13, Drainage and Flood Control, Article 3, Stormwater Runoff Control, Section 13-71, requirements relating to improvements, Section 13-73, figures, and providing for repealer and severability. Mr. Meisch.
Thank you. In working with some issues with some citizens, we found that we had a conflict in our city ordinances between sections 1371 and 1373, which deal with concrete lined drainage channels and how close a fence can be to those concrete lined drainage channels, excuse me. Upon finding this conflict, met with the Director of Code Enforcement, met with the Director of Community Development and the Director of Public Works to say, okay, which way do we want to go? Do we want to allow the fences up against the drainage, concrete drainage channel, or do we want them, which is what the ordinance says, 6 feet back? And after discussing and discussing and discussing some more and discussing with the Ordinance Review Committee, I think we finally landed on a spot, which is we're going to have the fences 6 feet back from the concrete drainage channels. So the changes that you see here in this make that very clear. And as well remove some figures that allowed the certain fences up to the concrete line drainage channel, move them back 6 feet. Now, there are multitudes of fences that currently are up against concrete drainage channels. Obviously, those will be grandfathered in, and there will be no action taken concerning those, but any future fences that are requested to be permitted will need to meet this requirement. And I'm happy to, this was brought before the Ordinance Review Committee, which did recommend its approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, but we're still going to take the position that the distance from 6 feet back from the fence to the concrete drainage channel is the responsibility of that homeowner, even though we're asking for a layback, right?
If it's a part of their property, the answer to that is yes. If it's in our easement or something like that, then it may fall upon us to do some maintenance there. But as a general rule, yes, it will still be the homeowner. If they own that property, the answer to that is yes.
Okay, and that's, I'm just going to speak to this, and I apologize because I wasn't at the last Ordinance Review Committee meeting. But I feel like personally, from a logical perspective, that's a hardship simply because we have historically taken the position that you've got to maintain to that concrete drainage line, and we're taking that position again. I respect what you're saying. I mean, if it's proven it's city easement, it is what it is. But for the most part, it's gonna fall on the homeowner, and if we're lying the fence 6 foot back, then if a new fence is installed, they're gonna have to install a gate on that fence line to be able to maintain their own property on the other side between their fence line and the concrete drainage ditch. And to me, it just makes more sense to let them have the fence line be adjacent to the concrete drainage ditch so that they can readily maintain that, as opposed to us, because I mean, with all due respect, and I would be willing to ask Mr. Stroh to come up here and give his opinion, but we have enough problems trying to get maintenance done on yards in this city. And so I don't want to see us do something by way of addressing this ordinance that's going to cause more harm than good in the sense of a lack of maintenance or upkeep. And if he disagrees with me, it won't be the first time, and I certainly respect his opinion. But I mean, this is just what I'm seeing in my head. So.
Councilwoman, you're exactly correct. It is hard. When we discussed this, we discussed it in length. The problem that makes it even worse is if the resident's fence goes all the way up to the drainage channel, then their tree root or whatever that is protruding into our concrete channel, it makes it harder for us as a city to be able to see what it is that's causing the damages. The 6 foot place gives us the ability to see the damages and therefore enforce better what needs to happen before damages are made to the infrastructure.
Okay, but
you are correct that it's hard as code doesn't walk the channels, and therefore I have requested assistance from the Mr. Streets and the drainage crews to be able to help us, because my guys don't have the equipment or abilities to walk all the channels.
And let me just discuss this with you, Mr. Stroh. Here's my other concern is we have this problem, as you well know, in fence lines, and our ordinances don't allow us to enforce those. And whether the fence line is 6 foot back or immediately adjacent to the concrete drainage ditch, we're still going to have tree roots and so forth that are going to potentially impact or overgrowth. Mr. Sullivan's nodding because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. We get overgrowth where the trees aren't maintained and they go into the drainage ditch, which then catches drain water and or the flow through of drain water and whatever debris may be going through, and causes that to catch also. I mean, is it, I'm not sure where that came from. I'm like getting feedback, sorry. Well, you know, I mean, it's early yet, stay tuned. Is it your belief, Mr. Stroh, or anybody who wants to speak on this, or, I mean, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Byrne, if you want to speak on this, that we're truly going to get, I hate to phrase it this way, but better maintenance by citizens if it is 6 foot back? Because it seems like to me the issue is those tree limbs or those tree roots are still going to be an issue, and we don't have the staff to go up and down. We don't, to maintain the easements or to maintain those spaces. And so other than maybe the visibility of being able to see where you're not, it's not obstructed by their fence line, I'm having trouble with this one, I'm sorry.
Well, and let me kind of enlighten you. Obviously, we kicked it to the experts on how to handle this. And what brought this about was a 2-year process that, unfortunately, me and Mr. Burns have been knee-deep in the process of. But when you have those fence lines too close to of course, anytime you lay concrete and water hits concrete, it speeds up expeditionally. And any debris coming down that gets caught on the fences and adds and basically builds a beaver dam and backs that system all the way up. And that's one of the problems we have with the one that we have been dealing with for 2 years. So that's kind of the gist of the 6 foot. At least to get most debris can at least get downstream and not clog up the system. Now, that's not going to be a cure-all. Well, it would be the homeowner, and it is the homeowner now. Now, a lot of them, I can tell you, I've walked several over on in Ms. Banna's district where they haven't been maintained. The concrete has been disrupted and it needs to be repaired. And this is probably the best solution that we can come up with. The maintenance, obviously code enforcement is going to have to step in, and it will be an issue for some of the homeowners, but
We can't hear you, sir.
I apologize. You've got 10 houses that abut up to it. The house on each end of the street, it's real easy for them to get out and mow the property behind them, but now we're going to make these people install gates so they can now get back out to mow the property behind their house.
however they facilitate it, I mean.
This will be everything that's in place of the grandfather.
You guys think you're busy now. Wait until you're riding a tall grass for every person that's like, I don't have a fence built back or a gate built back here. I've got to walk this around 10 other houses, because you guys are going to be doing that left and freaking right. And if you, because I can tell you as a homeowner, if I was in the middle of that and I didn't know it, because most homeowners aren't going to know that. They just aren't. And then all of a sudden they get a high grass citation or warning, and they're like, I've got to walk all the way around the neighborhood to take my lawnmower back there to mow it. It's really going to cause an inconvenience and probably a lot of work for you, while at the same time maybe addressing something else. But the trade-off, in your opinion, is worth it?
To me, we're already doing it. It's already there. The problem is it's not being maintained. And it's so overgrown right now that it can't be. We're going to have to do some things to get it. Yes, there's going to be a grandfathering for those fences that are too close, but we have it not even with drainage right now. You go behind Checkers, for example, they've got utility easements where the gas lines are, and the fences are separated. They never fenced in the utility easement. We have to walk that and document which house is where, and then go around and post them all. So we're doing it now for other situations. I think with a clear as the city attorney mentioned, we had it where it said we need it on the fence, and we also said where we want the fence back. So at least now we have we'll have a uniform understanding of how it's supposed to be, and we can go forward trying to clean it up and then hopefully keep it clean.
Okay. Mr. City Attorney, this also, this came up, and I'm not going to go into all the history because it'd take too long, but the way the ordinance was written, or the ordinance was understood, you could put a fence across the drainage ditch. And that was what's causing the problems, is the fences across the drainage ditch, correct?
There's
several of them that there's one in particular.
What this one was a cause, where this issue was found was a complaint that was made about a gate that was allowed to be constructed across a concrete line channel, yes.
Don't we have to get a permit to rebuild a fence in this community?
Yes.
So if somebody's grandfathered in and they come back to get a permit, is the old fence the only thing grandfathered in, or will the new
Yes.
fence have to go back 6 feet?
The new fence would have to go back 6 feet. Yeah. The Oklahoma Supreme Court has said that.
And then, it's not just that cost, but in fairness, if at this point, you're grandfathered in, and that fence line has been there for, let's say, in my neighborhood, since 1940, when the original mile was built, okay? It's not just a fence line. It's a tree-lined fence line, okay? So then, if you have to be able to put in a new fence, and you have to move that fence 6 feet back, then you've got all of that tree, shrubbery, et cetera, that's there too, that you're gonna have to deal with moving the fence line back. And so you may still have fence that can't be removed because it's literally ingrown in trees. This is common in my neighborhood, where the trees have literally encased part of the chain link fence or the wire fencing. So you're gonna have a new fence line with an old fence line that's partially back there that they can't remove. And I don't know that we can actually be able to enforce that by code to force that removal. And we have so much problems enforcing anything dealing with trees anyhow. I can't wrap my head around this one, folks. I just can't, because these areas haven't been maintained, and for us to now go, okay, it's grandfathered in, so like, is code gonna walk through the cement drainage ditch to say, okay, these 3 fences are still grandfathered, okay, now we have one that's not, so it's 6 foot back to be able to see the one. I mean, it just seems like it's a cost to the homeowners, it's a burden to the homeowners, it's a lot of effort on code enforcement to have to add to do, and I understand the aspect of trying to help to not prohibit the flow of our drainage ditches, because that's the complaint that I also personally get. But I'm just not wrapping my head around this.
And
one,
how are we
I'm
going to
sorry.
address the people that come back and have spent tens of thousands of dollars on landscaping, and now their new fence is going to have to cover up most of that, and they're going to lose that? I have problems with somebody that's been in a house for 30, 40, or 50, or heck, even 10 years, where their fence is. That's their backyard. That's where most people hang out in their backyards now. I just have problems telling somebody, oh, your fence is falling apart, you need a new fence. Yeah, you're going to lose 6 feet.
Well, in all actuality, if you look at the totality of the picture, there's not that many places that this would generally affect. There are some in Sarah's, and then there are some in Ward 1, but where an actual drainage ditch, a concrete improved drainage ditch running through with the backyards back to it, there's not that many that this generally affects. So, yes, it's going to be an additional burden, and well, and that's correct. And you know, the biggest example in your ward would be on Guy Drive. And
But I just have problems saying to somebody that's been there 30, 40, 10, doesn't matter. They made their backyard there, and all of a sudden they follow the rules. What we're gonna have is people won't follow the rules, and they'll say, listen, I'm not gonna do 16, I'm just gonna let somebody do this over here.
and that happens right now.
So I'm
So,
probably in the minority on this one.
To move
But-
well, instead of doing something that both of you are uncomfortable with, let's just pull the item, take no action, and let us go back and study it.
I would appreciate that.
Okay? Would that be,
We're back to square one.
okay, so we,
Eventually, we will have to fix this one way or another because we have conflicting ordinances,
We
right,
do,
as we
just so
speak
every-
today.
Yes, just so every member is aware, we do have a conflict between sections 13-71 of the city ordinances and 13-73 of the city ordinances, and that conflict does have to be resolved at some point in time, whichever direction it goes.
We're just gonna take no action and bring this back.
Right.
This is a taking without taking, it's just giving somebody's property.
I wouldn't go that far, Councilman Reed.
I use probably legal terms that you're uncomfortable with, and I'm not.
I would not call it a taking, no.
and there's a good reason you're not an attorney.
Really good.
We move on to item 10, and there's no action needed on that item as well. Item 11, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion and consideration for adoption, including any amendments of an ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code, Chapter 38 subdivision regulations, Article 8 definitions, Section 38-65.120, Parkland Review Committee, providing for repealer and severability. Mr. Mosh.
Thank you. So some questions came up about the Parkland Review Committee, and when the city clerk and I did some research, what we found was there was an ordinance passed, I don't know, back in the 40s, 50s, something like that, that established the Parkland Review Committee, but it was never codified in our city ordinances. Now, we had a provision codifying in our city ordinances that defined that we would have a parkland review committee, but it gave no details. So what we did is we pulled that old ordinance that was not codified, took that specific language, and we put it into the definition. Thereby now, we define out who can be on the parkland committee, and it is, if this is adopted, it would be codified into our city ordinances, what the parkland review committee is and who can be on it. This was again brought before the ordinance review committee, which recommended its approval. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments? Chair would entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we move into new business public discussion. Does anyone in the audience have anything to bring before the council? If you do, please keep in mind that because it's not an agenda item, we cannot engage in a back and forth discussion with you. We will entertain the possibility of bringing it back as a discussion item if it warrants or has merit. So with that being said, yes, ma'am, please approach the podium. And you raised your hand, correct?
Yes.
And please state your name and address for the record once again, please.
Joella Beaver, 10917 Ashton Terrace. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, and the council, I'm here to talk about the violence and the deterioration in Midwest City. I've lived here 30 years, retired from Tinker after almost 40 years, and I've watched this city deteriorate. And now it's gone to violence. More violence. It's always had violence. And I know everybody's got violence, but I live in Midwest City. So I can't help what's going on in other areas. Excuse me, I've got allergies really bad. and it's kind of affecting my voice tonight. I've lived in Midwest City 30 years. My feet are dug in. I'm very into Midwest City. I volunteered over here. You guys may not know, but I'm called the, can I get my water? Excuse me. My Oklahoma allergies are killing me. I'm sorry. I've done Provide a Ride, which was for low-income people who needed a ride to their medical appointments. I would go into the homes and assess whether these people were qualified, but also whether it was safe for them to go into communities. And even back then, and that's been in the last 10 years, I had to turn down communities in Midwest City because of the danger. I'm sorry, I'm clumsy tonight. Because of the danger. I wouldn't let my senior citizens go into those neighborhoods. But it's worse now. It's much worse. And now we've got killings of kids. This can't go on. I see on neighborhood all the time where there's shooting. People have gotten so used to it, they don't even care anymore. They don't leave their home. They don't care. But I do. And I want something done. And I want it done immediately because I am tired of this. I go to the park several times a week with my dog. I meet senior citizens out there who have no place else to go to talk to people. They come out there just to socialize. There's one little lady, she's homeless. But she comes out there because usually I'm out there. And sometimes she cooks her meal in the park. So that's not just a park for the average everyday person. It means something to us. And you guys have got to do something. We need action. Now, I don't know what the plan is. The mayor tells me that there's a plan. I want to know what the plan is. I want you to publicize it. I want the citizens to know. And I want you to give us progress reports on it. and I see you talking about all this new housing. What are you going to do about these old neighborhoods? Those people can't get out of those neighborhoods and go to the new housing. But what are you going to do to improve their life? You're putting all that money in these new houses that you don't have anybody to fill. You're hoping. Well, hope is good, but when you're putting a complex of apartments on every corner, as it appears, I'm just kind of shocked. Now, maybe that's my fault for not staying in tune with what's going on in the city, but you know what? I'm a senior. I gave my pint of blood a long time ago, and I shouldn't have to be given a pint of blood for this violence here in the city and the deterioration of the city. I've written about it on the Nextdoor app before. The area up here, well, crime follows deterioration. And you go up here on Air Depot, and what have you got? You got all those empty buildings. What are y'all going to do with them? You're building up over on 15th and Sooner Road, but you're robbing from the other parts of the city. What are you going to do with them? What are you going to do with all these strip malls that are vacant, that don't have marijuana shops in them? And that's another thing. I heard that kid out there, those kids out there at the park were smoking pot. Were they old enough? Who bought it for them? Are y'all checking into that? And the other thing is, what are we doing for our youth? You got plenty to do for the little kids and those little young kids that were here. I really am proud of that. But what about the ones that are at risk? What kind of community projects do y'all have for them? To get them out of the home and into something that's good, away from violence? Because so many of these kids that are creating the violence come from violent backgrounds, and they don't have parents to take care of them. So you got to make, the community's got to help those kids. Or we're going to have more of these 18-year-old and 15-year-olds that are getting shot, and we don't need that reputation. We've already got a bad reputation in Midwest City. Y'all know that, right? We're considered a ghetto. And I don't like that at all. I chose to make my home here. I've dug into the community and I've contributed. But I just, I can't handle this. This is kind of it's just not right. We don't have young families. We're not drawing young families. What have you got to draw in the young families? That's what we need. You got all that new housing, but who's going to fill it? Is that going to bring young kids in? I don't think so. Not right now. I don't know if maybe you think Tinker will bring it in, but I doubt it. I just doubt it. But we need a plan, and we need to know what's going on. We need to know why these underage kids are out there in the park alone, smoking pot and maybe booze. Who's providing it? What are their parents doing? Parents have to be involved. Parents have to be involved. The other thing is, I heard the chief say on TV that y'all were called out to the park because of the loud music. And then en route, they got a call that there was a shooting in progress. And he said, if we'd have been out there, maybe that wouldn't have happened. Well, why weren't you out there? Why weren't you? Of all the times for the last year and a half going to the park several times a week, I've never seen a policeman. And I love the police. You just ask them who the cheesecake lady is, and it's me. So, they got a big, wonderful pie last week. I didn't know that it was police week, but they get things like that from me because I appreciate my police. So I'm rambling a little bit here. I'm not following my notes, but I'm really a bit emotional about this because it's important. I want to be proud of my city. I want y'all to do something, take action. It's fine and dandy you're building all these apartments, but you got to think of these young kids. You got to catch them when they're young to keep them from ending up dead. So I want you guys to get a plan and publicize it and give us progress reports. And that's not just me. Now, you know that I'm very active on neighborhood whenever it comes It's something important, and I've been so active on it this last week, and the neighbors are beginning to get upriled, finally. I've tried to get them interested in this city, but it took a killing of a 15-year-old before people really wanted to get involved. They complain, yeah, you know, the gunshots and you never see the police on the streets, much less in the community. And when have we, as a citizen, ever denied police money? We've passed every one of those. Every time y'all have asked us to give you money, we have. But where are they? Where are they? You see plenty of them right after that incident at the park. But where are they going to see them next week? I saw more police on the street in the last 2 days than I've probably seen in, I don't know, a month, 2 months, I don't know. But you gotta have police. If there's a party out there at the park, you gotta have police presence parked right there where they can see it. They need to see that car.
Ma'am, not to cut you off, but in the sake of time, could you kind of wrap up and we appreciate your comments, obviously, but we do have somebody else that wants to speak.
Okay. Well, what I'm asking is a plan, and I'm asking for you guys to make a plan to occupy these kids. Do something within the community to get these kids off the streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy?
Mayor?
Randy?
I'm Randy Westbury, 8509 Northeast 15th Street. Came here to talk about my flooding areas that I've had over there for years and years now. And I also have a petition about all my neighbors and that surrounding from Northeast 15th to Ward to 16th Street. Right, it'd be 17th Street. And this is something that the city has done, has caused, and is doing nothing but flood my house and every house that's in my neighborhood.
What's your address again?
8509 Northeast 15th Street. And I've had a gentleman come out there, won't name no names, and he was concerned about it, and he did talk with me, and I have talked to let me get his name. I guess the engineer. He blew me off. Told me he'd get back with me and sounded concerned, and he blew me off to a Thomas. I guess that's his underneath guy. He's blown me off. And nothing has gotten done about it. I mean, absolutely nothing. And you guys were concerned about, there's like about a 50-acre lot on the south side of me, and you guys were concerned about what he was doing over there. And what he's got going over there, he's helping us, because he's got all these ponds over there, and every time it rains, and I'm not talking about drizzle rain, I'm talking about a good rain, all his ponds are catching the water. Because if he didn't have what he had over there, what it's doing, it's going on his part of his property and then switching back over to our side of the street because there's no drainage there. And the city has caused that. I've been living in there for 8 years now, and I did find out that the city did do that. The city caused that to happen. For whatever reason, they decided to come up with their new drainage. Didn't work. All it caused was everybody getting flooded right there. And I gave videos. I received, did you receive 2 videos, Mayor? Still waiting on something to happen with that, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
I mean, my dog can't even go out in the yard and take a leak without, you know what I mean? I gotta give the guy a bath. That's not right. I pay my taxes like everybody else. And you know, and I'll tell you, for about $2,500, I could do it myself and save you guys, but you'd have every other neighbor around me bitching about it, because that's exactly what they do. I'd fix my part, but I'd hurt them, and I'm not gonna do that. So I would appreciate if I got at least a call back instead of a bunch of yeah me, and nothing ever happens about it. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you, Randy. I've
Thanks,
still
sir.
got your number.
Thank you, sir.
That's all that's signed up to speak to the council. We've come to the end of our agenda. There is not an executive session needed for this. Do I hear any other business to bring before the council? Hearing or seeing? Yes, sir.
Do I need to state my name?
Yes, sir. And your address, please.
Yes, my name is Brent McGee. I'm a resident at 9409 Sherwell Drive. I remember coming a couple months ago and addressing the proactivity in the community by the police department. And I don't really see much being done. Remember, I had spoke about the crime wave and how we wanted to keep it out of Midwest City. And yet here we are, something that could have been prevented has happened. Prior to the shooting, I had called and talked to the department about fighting going on at the park. And nothing was done. And the very next day, you have a child being murdered in this city. You have shootings going on everywhere. You were elected to protect our community. All of you were. We had just appointed a new chief to look over our city. It looks like the sheriff is doing a better job than the local police. It looks as if we're starting a race war. And guess who takes the blame for this? The African American community. They're gonna look like the vigilantes, the thugs. That's how it's always been. What are we gonna do to prevent that this time around? Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Does anyone else have anything to bring before the council? Mr. Goforth.
Jonathan Goforth, 11625 Market Street. And I've been a Midwest City citizen since I got out of the Marine Corps in 1993 and have lived here ever since. And if the previous two speakers would have listened to Mr. Lyon, the plan was clearly laid out by Mr. Lyon what the city's response is to this. And the city as a whole is not going down the drain. It is not. I mean, the council here, the city, is actually working to improve the city overall. And I cannot stand by and hear people say that we're going down, it's going downhill. It's not. And I mean, I would challenge anybody to go out to the at-risk community and talk to them. Why do you think we did not have any riots here in Midwest City? It wasn't because of the activists weren't here, they were here. It's because the relationship that our police department has with the at-risk community and everybody else around in our community, and the care that the council and the city as a whole does this. And I applaud the city for taking a holistic approach to the problems of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goforth. Seeing or hearing no other comments for the council, we are hereby adjourned. That concludes our council meeting for this evening. I'll call the Midwest City Municipal Authority to order. We do have a consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so the trustees, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any trustee requests an item or unanimous consent cannot be received, then the item will be removed and heard in regular order. The chair and entertain a motion
Move
to approve. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. We now move into the new business public discussion for the authority. Does anyone have anything to bring before the authority? Hearing or seeing none, we are hereby adjourned. I call to order the Midwest City Hospital Authority. We do have a consent agenda attached to this, and these items are placed on the consent agenda so the trustees, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any trustee requests to discuss an item or a unanimous consent cannot be received, then the item will be removed and heard in regular order. The chair would entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. We have a discussion item. No action needed on that discussion item. We now move into new business public discussion. Does anyone have anything to bring before the authority? Hearing or seeing none, we hereby adjourn. And I call to order the Special Economic Development Authority. We have a consent agenda attached to this. These items are placed on consent agenda so the trustees, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any trustee requests to discuss an item, or if a unanimous consent cannot be received, then the item will be removed and heard in regular order. Chair to entertain a motion.
Hang on, Mayor, we'd like to pull item 4.
Okay, I would have to have a motion indicating so. I have a properly formed motion. Do I have a second?
Move to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 4, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve and/or amend a resolution of the Midwest City Economic Development Authority declaring approximately 24.03 acres located in the northwest quarter of Section 22, Township 12 North, Range 2 West of the Indian Meridian surplus, and approving a certain agreement for the purchase and sale of the real estate by and between the Midwest City Economic Development Authority and MTG Property Holdings, LLC, the real estate agreement, with possible amendments authorizing and directing execution and delivery of real estate agreement containing other provisions relating thereto. Mr. Coleman.
Good evening, Honorable Chairman, trustees. We've been working on this project that some of you know as Project Oscar for over 8 months now. We've been talking to a team that's interested in investing $20+ million in our community in one of the most economically challenged areas where the average age is less than 30 years old, but the average per capita income is about 75% of that of the remainder of the city as a whole. And it's a census tract where the annual median income is estimated at less than $45,000. MTG Property Holdings proposes to purchase these 24.03 acres located at approximately 7230 Northeast 36th Street as the site for a new 55,000 square foot food processing plant. The subject site is opposite the Animal Control Center located between the Stillwater-Watco Railroad tracks and our Water Resources Recovery Facility. I just thought this might be a good time to answer any questions that you may have. And in our audience is Mr. Jimmy Harrison from Centrillium Proteins, and he will be the operator of this plant. And he's got some renderings that he wanted to pass out to you, and he wanted to say a few words and introduce himself tonight.
All right. Well, I appreciate, Robert, you having me down, and thank you for considering our proposal. A little bit of background on me. I'm from Phoenix originally. My dad is a real estate developer in Phoenix, kind of throughout the Southwest. And then I've spent my career with Cargill in our beef division. Most recently, I was our North America pricing lead, and then I was a commercial leader for our beef business in the past 2 years. I left Cargill about 7 months ago, and it was really just a growing disconnect between what a lot of our customers are wanting and what we're able to do in these bigger plants. And when I say bigger plants, our beef plants would harvest 5,000 to 6,000 head of cattle per day. And so, you know, we've got customers that have increasingly specialized needs, and we don't have time to slow down for, you know, Sam's Club or Texas Roadhouse, things like that. So we were actively looking for and soliciting other people to do a lot of that work for us, and there's really just a gap in the market for kind of that mid-tier and somewhat of a go-between between what our customers need in this space, and they're getting the same pressures. I mean, a lot of them don't want to complete that work in their, whether it be in their stores or their kitchens, et cetera. And so that's really the niche we mean to serve. We started out at 55,000 square feet. It's kind of grown a little bit. It's looking more like about mid 70,000 square feet on that site. One of the byproducts that we'll generate is tallow, which is just liquid fat, liquid beef fat. That's got a lot of different uses. There's Nestle Purina has a pet food plant on the north end of town, or in Edmond, that they use a lot of tallow. And then most recently it goes into renewable diesel and biodiesel. So there's a renewable diesel plant down in Winterwood that we would like to supply as well. So that's the part of the agreement includes a rail spur, and that's what that would be used for, is transporting tallow. Some of the tallow will be transported via truck, and then the balance will be via rail. But everything into the facility will be coming in raw, and so we would be bringing in, you think of like whole primal cuts, so like a strip, a ribeye, chuck roll, and then we'll be further breaking them down, whether it's piecing apart the muscles, putting them into a different packaging format, et cetera. There's two parts to the plant. One is kind of that custom trimming part that I talked about, that would, you know, like a Sam's Club, Texas Roadhouse, and then we'd also do contract work for upstream, for a Cargill and for, you know, for bigger customers like that. So that's one part of the plant. And then kind of the protein recovery part, which will generate the tallow. That part will run 2 shifts. At full employment, we're anticipating to have right around 100 employees. So when we were looking around, I mean, Midwest City and Oklahoma region in general offered tremendous opportunity just for inbound and outbound logistics. We can pretty well hit every major market still from Oklahoma, from kind of central Oklahoma region. So that was important to us. You know, looking at the workforce, we feel like Midwest City would be a great place. And we met with Matt before, and he was very welcoming, and we're excited to have Midwest City as a potential partner. Talking a little bit about the entities, so Centrillium Protein is a startup company. You know, like I said, I left Cargill, I think it's 7 months ago now. Time's growing on me a little bit, but so that's a company that I've started. I've raised my money for that. It's actually kind of in process of being wired in here this week, but so I have my investor set for that. And then the MTG Property Holdings is actually a family member of mine that's going to do the real estate separately. So they're going to build and finance the real estate, then we'll lease that asset, or Centrillium will lease that asset from them with an option to buy it later.
Tonight's real estate agreement is one of 3 documents we'll need to approve as part of this project. The other being the establishment of the project plan for the tax increment district. That cleared the local development review committee last Thursday, and will be headed to the planning commission soon, and then onto this body. We will also need to approve a separate development assistance agreement. The city, as most of you will remember, has committed to bring sanitary sewer to the project. It's right across from our plant, but there's no line over there. And then we have also committed to construct the rail spur once the plant has opened up. Does anyone have any questions?
In addition, the water line, we'll be putting the water line in.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
No, just a statement. Somebody asked, how do we attract younger people into this town earlier today? This is how you attract younger people, jobs.
Absolutely.
I just
$20
wanna-
million being spent, $4 million a year on payroll. That's how you attract younger people back in here.
I just want to thank you for considering Midwest City, and I hope that you opt to make it your own home type of thing. And thank you, as always, Mr. Coleman, for everything that you do for us for economic development. We appreciate you immensely, so thank you.
Robert mentioned the TIF deal too. I'll tell you that the other members of the TIF were ready to vote on it before we were ready to present it. That's how excited they were about the jobs.
Terrific.
Why we have to come back? We just vote on it, approve it today. There's a process you got to go through. They were ready to skip the whole process and just, that they were that excited about it.
Well, thanks for being here, and given the mood of the council, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Ward 5, let Ward 5, this is her ward.
I just wanted to say, Ward 5 residents are ecstatic to have you here. We want to welcome you, and we are all looking forward to some new employment opportunities for our community. If I can ever be of any type of service, please don't hesitate to call. I'll make sure you have my card. So welcome to our ward, and Midwest City as a whole. What, to adjourn?
To approve.
Oh, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
All right.
Thank you. Sorry, I thought it was just comments. Yes.
We can go home now. She
You made a motion?
Yeah, motion to approve.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Opposed?
Look, Councilwoman Banna is a woman of action. She's like, enough talk, we don't need to talk about this anymore, we're just moving forward.
Now we move into new business public discussion. Does anyone have anything to bring before the authority? Hearing or seeing none, we are hereby adjourned. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here and participating in your city government. Have a good night.